Welcome back to the Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into an incredibly concise but absolute powerhouse of a text, the Scholar's Blueprint for Startup Success, Startup Success Stories for School Students. We're going to break down exactly what this text implies about youth, ambition, and the real architecture of achievement. It is fascinating to see how just a few carefully chosen words can trigger a massive shift in perspective, and honestly completely change the way you might look at your own potential.
Right off the bat, this brings us to the foundational question driving all of our source material today. Can a student actually build a startup? For the longest time, the default assumption has been that entrepreneurship is strictly an adult endeavor. We picture it as something totally reserved for tech veterans in Silicon Valley boardrooms, backed by millions of dollars and decades of experience. But this text, it completely shatters that preconceived notion. It speaks directly to the student audience, challenging the idea that you somehow have to wait until you have a college degree in hand before you can start building something meaningful.
Okay, Section 1, the Scholar's Blueprint, Rethinking the Student Role.
Notice how this phrasing instantly elevates you from a passive student to an active, empowered scholar. Think about it. A student might just show up to class, sit in the back row, and mindlessly absorb whatever is scrawled on the whiteboard. But a scholar is a dedicated learner actively pursuing profound knowledge. By hitting us with a specific word right out of the gate, the text is demanding active participation. It's basically telling you that to achieve the success it promises, you literally cannot be passive. You've got to take complete ownership of your intellectual journey.
And what exactly does a scholar use to build out their vision? A blueprint. The text doesn't say the scholar's vague idea or the scholar's wishful thinking. No, it explicitly calls it a blueprint. The logic here is absolutely vital. A blueprint isn't just some abstract thought floating around in your head. It is a highly actionable structural foundation. Think about architecture for a second. You absolutely cannot build a skyscraper by just winging it with some bricks and hoping for the best, right? You need a meticulous, precise guide. Entrepreneurship requires that exact same intentional design.
And this is where we see a massive shift in mindset. Look, traditional schoolwork so often involves rote memorization, passive reception of facts, and completing assignments just to earn a grade. It's essentially jumping through academic hoops. The Scholar's Blueprint, on the other hand, flips that completely. It treats learning as an actionable master plan. Instead of just cramming for a test, you are acquiring tools, skills, and knowledge to actively construct something of real value out there in the world. Moving on to Section 2, Defining Startup Success, Beyond the Boardroom.
When you actually apply that scholar's intentional design, the ultimate destination is startup success. Now, a startup is, by definition, an organization formed to search for a repeatable and scalable business model. So success here means you've identified a very real problem, engineered a solution using your blueprint, and brought it out into the world. Our source is boldly making the claim that a scholar's rigorous, active approach to learning is the exact same mechanism required to succeed in the wild, unpredictable environment of a startup. Which begs a really fascinating rhetorical question. What does success actually look like before graduation? Seriously, take a second to engage with this idea. Try to reimagine success not as some distant adult milestone that just magically unlocks the day you get your diploma. The text is implying that success is a present possibility. If you're a scholar utilizing a blueprint today, you can achieve startup success today. Your classroom can literally become your incubator, and your homework could be the foundational research for your very first product. Let's synthesize the concepts we've explored so far, because the title's words interlock into one incredibly unified framework. The text implies 3 pillars that are essentially holding each other up. First, you have active scholarship, that relentless drive to seek out profound knowledge. Second, strategic planning, which is represented by the meticulous nature of that blueprint. And third, entrepreneurial success, the ultimate goal of building a startup. You simply cannot reach that final outcome without those first 2 foundational steps. They interlock perfectly to form a complete, step-by-step roadmap. All right, Section 3, Stories for School Students. Your turn to build. The author completely removes all ambiguity here. For school students, this blueprint isn't meant for tenured professors, and it's not meant for 30-something venture capitalists. It is meant for you, right now. And honestly, this is incredibly empowering because it completely validates your ambition. By dedicating this text directly to school students, it is granting you full permission to step directly into the entrepreneurial arena today. Let's read the full subtitle exactly as it's written. Startup Success Stories for School Students. Notice that the author isn't offering startup theories or startup data analysis. They explicitly promise stories.
This combination of narratives directed at a student audience highlights a truly profound understanding of how we actually learn and internalize complex ideas.
So, why stories? Why rely on narratives to communicate this blueprint? Well, because stories are just the most human, relatable way to map out a structural plan. Let's be real, data and theories can be dry and super intimidating, but a story? A story shows you someone just like you facing challenges, applying that scholar's mindset, and actually achieving a goal. Stories provide proof of concept. They prove that startup success isn't just theoretical, it's tangible, it's achievable, and it has actually been done by people sitting in the exact same kind of classroom seats that you are right now.
So, to wrap up the core takeaways from our deep dive today, the power of this framework lies in 3 key strategies. First, it centers on youth, elevating students to the status of scholars. Second, it relies on narrative, using stories to teach rather than dry, boring lectures. And third, it demystifies startups, breaking down the incredibly intimidating world of entrepreneurship into a structured, highly actionable blueprint that anyone with a bit of dedication can follow.
Which leaves us with a final and pretty provocative thought to close out our explainer today. We've seen exactly how the text empowers the student, how it provides a tangible blueprint, and how it uses stories to prove that all of this is actually possible. So now I'm turning the concept back onto you. What will your success story look like? The scholar's blueprint is right there for the taking. The structural foundation has been completely revealed. Now it is entirely up to you to start building. Keep learning, keep designing, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.